but they were still attached to each other, as if their love story would end there, until one day, Mizuto's father suddenly remarried Yume's mother, so Mizuto and Yume would become step-siblings. It was difficult for their parents to find new happiness, so both decided to keep the fact that they were ex-lovers a secret and also set a new rule, that whoever still had feelings for the other would be the loser on the first day of living together. Mizuto and Yume both acted close in front of their parents, but when they were away, the two would argue like cats and dogs. That night, Yume wanted Mizuto not to tell their parents about their dark past, because finding new happiness is not easy. Yume didn't want their past as ex-lovers to affect their parents. After eating, Yume went into Mizuto's room to clarify some small things and felt awkward when they kept calling each other by their names. So she wanted Mizuto to call her older sister, but of course Mizuto refused, because why should the younger one be the older sister and not the younger sister? So Yume explained to Mizuto that in Japan, whoever is born first has the right to be the older sibling. According to Mizuto's memory, they were both born on 3/11. But Yume was confident because she was born 30 minutes before Mizuto, which made him bored and not want to argue. After a while of arguing with neither willing to concede to be the younger sibling, Mizuto decided to settle their positions with a game since they had to hide their relationship from others. Yume proposed that during their time living together, if anyone acted unlike siblings in the house, they would have to be the younger sibling of the other, and this would only count for that instance. Just after saying this, Yume suddenly revealed Mizuto's secret documents, making him unable to do anything because they were family. So usual harassment wouldn't be effective. If Yume only played with the bookshelf, it would be fine. But she even opened a drawer that Mizuto didn't want anyone to see, just as the drawer was about to open. Mizuto unexpectedly admitted defeat because he didn't want them to fight anymore, and Mizuto's action made Yume unconsciously call him by his last name like when they were dating. Just waiting for this, Mizuto declared himself the winner. Because siblings don't call each other by last names, making Yume have to call him older brother with a bitter tone. Mizuto took the chance to flex that brains make the difference, and when he saw her hurt face, he suddenly realized he had said too much, so he apologized to his older sister right after. But Mizuto not only failed to soothe Yume, but instead got called a trash older brother. Not only did they become step-siblings, but both were also accepted into the same school. Moreover, they were in the same class and shared the same last name, so now it would be hard to pretend not to know each other when entering high school. Mizuto hoped Yume could make many friends because only he knew she was a bit crazy. But Yume wasn't scared because she had already prepared a secret weapon, and Yume's secret weapon was the person who scored the highest on the entrance exam, so she was surrounded by many friends. Yesterday, Mizuto said people differ by their brains, but then he scored lower than Yume, so he wasn't that bitter during break time. Mizuto was approached by a few boys in class, which surprised him at first. He thought they genuinely wanted to be friends, but it turned out they just used him as a stepping stone to get closer. The girl was both his stepsister and ex-girlfriend, but that cheeky girl even dared to spread rumors that she was the older sister, which was even more annoying. After returning home, Yume suddenly asked Mizuto why he wasn't bothered. When the new classmates looked down on her, Yume really hated those types, who pamper the younger brother to flirt with the older sister. But Mizuto didn't care as long as he wasn't dragged into their plan. The next morning, Yume went to school with Mizuto, which confused him because didn't she want to go separately before? And when they arrived at school, Mizuto realized she had disguised herself as a tomboy to avoid the attention of the boys in class. But at the same time, it also helped Mizuto avoid being bothered by those guys. Today, both their parents would come home late, so Mizuto decided to cook something, which surprised Yume because a bookworm like him also knew how to cook. But don't forget, he's lived with his dad for over 15 years, while Yume's cooking skills were at a disaster level. When seeing Mizuto Yume's arm, I suddenly remembered the moment this morning when I accidentally got him free sticky rice. So Yume hoped Mizuto could forget that feeling, but Mizuto didn't even bother to remember, let alone forget. I just buried my face in the countryside river until bath time. Yume was still very annoyed with Mizuto, because that sentence was nothing but an insult, implying Yume's home lacked proper electricity and water, so Mizuto didn't bother to remember. Therefore, Yume decided to come up with some trick to crush Mizuto's cold, gecko-like face. After bathing, I unexpectedly stepped outside wearing only a bath towel. It almost made the young man choke on his water, which made Yume extremely delighted because Mizuto's reaction exceeded my expectations. Yume took advantage and Mizuto had to ask me to put on clothes immediately, but I used the excuse of being family to scare my ex-boyfriend, so he couldn't do anything more. I tried changing my position a bit and noticed his eyes darting like Jiang Luo. In front of Yume was a flustered Mizuto, not the usual cold boy, which made me very satisfied. Just then, my bath towel started to slip. I realized my prank had gone too far because like this, it was no different from seducing someone. Fortunately, Mizuto quickly lent me his jacket, normally obedient, but even he couldn't imagine me daring to do such bold things like just now and this morning. Mizuto also advised me to dress properly when going out, but since I didn't want my family to be looked down on, well, understanding that, Mizuto sincerely thanked me. Just as I was about to change into pajamas, I tripped, causing us both to fall into the legendary zombie.com position. At that moment, memories of when we were in love suddenly flooded Mizuto's mind, and he unconsciously called me by my old name. Just as Mizuto couldn't control the demon inside him, both our parents came home. After that, Mizuto hid me under the sofa to conceal this wrong situation. It took a lot of effort for Mizuto to end things with me. Yet earlier, he almost crossed the line. I wasn't much different from Mizuto, and because of that personality, we both hated and were obsessed with each other until now. Today's episode 2. Mizuto's class had a physical fitness test at the start of the school year. So a guy named Kogure came to make friends and support each other, learning from last time. Mizuto warned him he'd have to step over his dead body to get close to me, but Kogure said he genuinely wanted to be friends with Mizuto purely, not to flirt with his sister, so no worries. To commemorate their 1-minute friendship, Kogure gave Mizuto the embarrassed face of me sitting behind. During gym class, a girl named Akatsuki approached me. Although our fruit gardens were on opposite sides, grapefruit on one side, oranges on the other, we quickly became good friends. When we entered high school, I tried to become a new person by changing both my personality and appearance. But there was one thing I couldn't fix: my extremely poor motor skills. In contrast to me, my friend had very strong motor nerves, which made my stepbrother only wish for that ability. Originally, I planned to build the image of an excellent student, so I had no choice but to try my best on the test. Meanwhile, my stepbrother gave up after only 2 sit-ups, which was very annoying. Then I used all my strength for the physical fitness test, so all my scores were very good, but trying too hard backfired. I collapsed from exhaustion after the running test. Fortunately, Mizuto's grandfather caught me, which confused Akatsuki because the boys had finished the test long ago. Afterwards, Akatsuki took me to the infirmary, where I revealed to her that I was really bad at sport and didn't want anyone to know, so I exercised late into the night, making myself tired and sleep-deprived. Akatsuki was very interested in my story because she thought I was the perfect school beauty but turned out to be so bad at sports. Akatsuki was very delighted to hear Yume's story because she always thought Yume was the perfect school beauty, but unexpectedly, she was so bad at sports. Akatsuki also really wanted to see what Yume looked like when she was angry, and Yume reluctantly indulged her new friend. And Yume's angry expression made Akatsuki exclaim because it was so adorable. After that, Akatsuki also asked permission to call Yume by her first name instead of her last name, even though it was a bit awkward, and Yume accepted, marking the close relationship between the two later on. Just as they returned to class, they encountered Mizuto's displeased face. Mizuto also took this opportunity to tease Yume, making her feel quite bitter. Only then could Yume get acquainted with Isana. Meanwhile, Isana clarified that she was just friends with Mizuto and shared common interests, and the actions of the two brothers made Akatsuki feel that Mizuto cared a lot about his stepsister. But Yume thought that guy looked like he didn't care about her at all. The next day, Akatsuki was very worried when he heard Yume was bedridden at home, so Kogure pulled Akatsuki away from Mizuto's desk. These two have been childhood friends and always quarrel like cats and dogs. When Kogure says one sentence, she has to reply 10. Akatsuki decided to visit Yume after school and asked Mizuto for directions. Kogure also took this chance to visit her friend's house, but was stopped by that little brat, making Mizuto wonder if he should let these two go to his house. On the way home, Mizuto told Akatsuki about his and Yume's situation, except for the fact that they used to be lovers. Then Akatsuki planned to surprise Yume, but was stopped by Mizuto because sick people don't need surprises. After that, Mizuto led Akatsuki into Yume's room. At that moment, she was feverish and called Mizuto by his last name, like when they were still in love, making him embarrassed. Luckily, she was out of it. Akatsuki didn't think much and bought some ingredients to cook kanji to help Yume recover. Yume even asked Mizuto to help her a bit, but little did they know how ticklish those two brats were. While cooking, Akatsuki asked Mizuto what he planned to do about bringing a girlfriend home, even though he looked like he couldn't find one. But Akatsuki felt that he had dated before when he saw how Mizuto behaved. With girls now, Mizuto didn't intend to find a girlfriend, but if he had a new girlfriend, he wouldn't introduce her to Yume because it's troublesome, unless it's about marriage. After listening to the young man talk for a while, Akatsuki said he understood, making Mizuto unsure what she was thinking. After cooking the kanji, Akatsuki even wanted to feed Yume, making her very shy, and Mizuto felt embarrassed for his stepsister before leaving. Akatsuki suddenly asked if Mizuto and Yume were just normal siblings, and he only added the word step after siblings. Indeed, now they were just normal siblings, but in the past, they weren't. Although sick, Yume still had the strength to tease Mizuto about being close to Akatsuki, so Mizuto had to explain to the old flame that it was just Akatsuki's communication skills. When Yume started rambling, Mizuto switched to comforting his sick stepsister, but then he suddenly realized she was talking to him from the past, and Mizuto accepted to play his past self a bit so Yume could feel at ease and fall asleep. Back then, they got to know each other because of a shared interest in books. Whenever Yume caught a cold, he would hold her hand while sleeping like now. At that time, Mizuto thought he would have a wonderful youthful love story. However, they broke up after some small misunderstandings, but after Mizuto's father remarried, he suddenly discovered that his stepsister was actually Yume, as if fate was mocking him. That evening, Yume started demanding many things from Mizuto, including holding hands while sleeping, which made Mizuto start to doubt, so he checked her temperature and found out she was actually faking being sick. Mizuto needed an explanation from Yume, but she preferred to remain silent, making Mizuto have to step in and discipline his naughty stepsister. Yume was supposed to lose this time, but since she just recovered from being sick, Mizuto let it slide. After receiving an apology before going to her room, Mizuto carefully reminded her about holding hands, making Yume so embarrassed she wanted to disappear, but she still wanted her brother not to leave. During about a year and a half of sick leave, Yume was originally a gloomy and eccentric girl. She even put all the gifts Mizuto gave her into a box and worshipped them like a deity, looking like a crazy person who didn't know how to swim. The next morning, Yume found a strange pair of pants in the room. She sniffed them and realized they were Mizuto's pants, making her very flustered. If this got out except to Mizuto, Yume would want to crawl into a hole to avoid embarrassment for the rest of her life. Besides, she also became his stepsister, and even imagined the scene of her brother disciplining his sister looking like this. That's why Yume planned to return these shorts to their owner, and to do that, the only way was to return them while he was asleep. After that, Yume read books until late at night before starting the plan to stalk the shark. And just as the shorts were about to be returned to their owner, Yume ran into Mizuto, who was also on his way to return a bra to a girl, so the two played rock, paper, scissors to see who would have to speak first. Yume lost, so she had to tell the story. She put all the gifts Mizuto gave her into a box and kept them until now, except for the shorts, so Mizuto called Yume a disgusting girl. But Yume noticed the guy blushing, proving he was embarrassed. Actually, Yume could have made up some excuse, but she hadn't thought of any, so she chose to tell the truth. Mizuto had accidentally picked up Yume's bra right when her dad came in, so he chose the right moment to return it, but Yume thought it couldn't be such a coincidence. She was sure Mizuto had some dark intention with the bra. Come on, you're holding someone else's shorts and still making a fuss like that. Really? Yume also had a similar situation like Mizuto's in the bathroom, when someone walked in after her mom. Then, Yume questioned Mizuto if he did anything weird, but his answer hesitated for a moment, making her think he was lying. Mizuto asked Yume back, and her answer also hesitated. In short, both of them had inappropriate actions for step-siblings, so they both violated the step-sibling code. Therefore, Mizuto suggested they could give orders to each other on the condition that they do not violate social norms, and Yume agreed to that proposal, so the two would continue to act as close step-siblings at school. After class, Yume accidentally discovered Mizuto talking to another girl who dressed exactly like Yume in middle school, making her very jealous. The next morning, Yume told Akatsuki about it, but her friend didn't know who the girl was. The situation became even more shocking when Yume found a strange pair of slippers in the house, driving her crazy because before, after dating for half a year, Mizuto only dared to bring Yume home. Then Yume took a photo of the slippers and hid in her room to call Mizuto, asking him to go out and buy some things for her. When Mizuto left the house, Yume planned to catch the girl hiding in his room. After hearing the door open, Yume went to Mizuto's room, but he was still there, surprising her a lot. It turned out the person who left was that girl, but Mizuto seemed clueless, so Yume showed him the evidence she just took. Mizuto let her check the room too. After checking, Yume found nothing unusual in Mizuto's room, but still wanted him to explain if those slippers belonged to the girl he brought home or not. Mizuto didn't want to explain further because he was very tired, so he admitted that the girl was the one he brought home. This made Yume think the reason Mizuto said he was tired was because he just wrestled with that girl. Mizuto looked at Yume's face and immediately knew she was thinking something dark. At that moment, he accidentally saw the fifth chair at the dining table, which surprised him a lot, but he didn't intend to say anything more to Yume. Seeing Mizuto's reaction, Yume was afraid she was overreacting again like before, while Mizuto was feeling very annoyed because that girl played a prank on him. While Mizuto was reading in the library, a girl who looked like Yume confessed to him and even asked to marry him, but Mizuto coldly refused. It turned out Akatsuki disguised herself as Yume to confess to Mizuto in order to become Yume's little sister, making Mizuto speechless. On his way home, Mizuto was followed by Akatsuki and was discovered by Yume. Back to the present, Mizuto decided to tell this story to Kogure, making him laugh out loud. Then Kaguya told Mizuto about how crazy Akatsuki was, that if she wanted to do something, she would do it no matter what. In middle school, Akatsuki had a boyfriend and spent all her time with him, making Mizuto very happy. But 3 months later, the unlucky boyfriend was so scared by Akatsuki's love that he was hospitalized due to psychological trauma. Just hearing the story from a friend on the phone was enough to give Mizuto goosebumps. And to help avoid Akatsuki's traps, Kogure gave Mizuto a method to protect himself, but you need the help of your stepsister. Then Mizuto went to Yume's room to administer the punishment. For the second time, the two held each other's underwear, which was to ask you out tomorrow, making her very surprised. Although this was a punishment, Yume felt like it was indirectly violating the rules. Step-siblings. On second thought, she felt that close siblings often hang out together. So this is just a common activity for step-siblings. Nothing wrong. Today, Mizuto also dressed better than usual. That's making Yume silently exclaim, "He's so handsome," while lining up in the aquarium. Yume felt very shy because it was full of couples around. Even though the two had been dating for a long time, she just fell for Mizuto's handsomeness, but reminded herself not to smile or else he would despise her. Then Mizuto held Yume's hand, making her almost reveal a delighted face. Outside and somewhere in the aquarium, The childhood friends were spying on the two's happiness. Mizuto also knew those two were following because this was a plan devised by Kogure, and to make the weird girl Akatsuki give up her ambition to become part of Yume's family, Kogure wanted Mizuto to make the declaration of becoming Yume's bro a reality. If Akatsuki knew the two were dating, she would definitely tail them. Then Mizuto would have to show his love for Yume to break Akatsuki's little heart. Back to the present. Unable to explain Akatsuki's story to Yume, Mizuto had to play the role of a pathetic guy, going out with his ex-girlfriend after a sweet time dating before. Kogure instructed Mizuto to praise Yume a lot, but he didn't know their past. Mizuto also wanted to endure some humiliation to deal a painful blow to that weird girl, but he was too embarrassed to speak. After some inner struggle, Mizuto praised Yume. As cute with his usual teasing tone, who would have thought she replied with a thank you? At this time, Akatsuki also saw the two were very close but still had some suspicion in her eyes. To make those two jealous, Mizuto suddenly put his arm around Yume's shoulder but pretended to help her avoid bumping into someone. This made Yume very excited, but she was also in cold gecko mode, so she asked Mizuto to take his hand off. Buddy? But Yume was also surprised by Mizuto's reaction, because in front of her was no longer the Mizuto who usually teased her. As for Mizuto, he noticed he'd been glared at by Yume all this time, but when he held her hand or put his arm around her, she looked quite surprised, making him feel girls are really hard to understand, so he had to ask for help from strategist Kogure. The story is Akatsuki, after seeing the two so lovey-dovey, seemed to have given up, so Kogure decided to let his friend lead the date. Then Mizuto realized he didn't understand why he had to go on a date with his ex, who wasn't even his current lover, because the aquarium restroom was too crowded. Yume had to go somewhere quite far, but she didn't expect her poor map reading skills. So damn it. Just then, Mizuto also called Yume, asking where she was, and Yume said she was under the sky. Speaking of which, Yume could already imagine a series of sarcastic remarks from Mizuto aimed at herself, but he took the blame for not reminding her earlier. Making her a bit surprised, Mizuto told his stepsister to stay put so he could come pick her up, but then he suddenly heard Yume say it wasn't like that before hanging up. Yume seemed to regret her previous words. Today, Mizuto was very gentle with Yume, yet she behaved unlike anyone else. Going back to middle school, at first, Yume and Mizuto were just friends in the library, but then one day Yume gathered all her courage to make her first ever date invitation. On that first date, Yume got lost in the crowded crowd, so she had to call Mizuto with tears streaming down, and Mizuto hoped she could wait there for him. And while Yume was thinking the worst about herself, Mizuto appeared with a bubble tea and a smile on his face and sweet comforting words. Back to the present, just as Yume was about to leave, Mizuto appeared with a bubble tea, surprising Yume. But instead of a sweet smile, Mizuto spat out sarcastic remarks at Yume. Maybe the two have to act like this to make her feel better after coming back from the aquarium. The step-siblings started their usual bickering again, making little Akatsuki sad and leave. So the two continued to watch the jellyfish swimming. Then they played games together, but after a while, they started arguing again, neither willing to give in. After they broke up for half a year, Mizuto grew to hate Yume more and more because all her actions and words made him very uncomfortable. She was supposed to be the one Mizuto loved and cherished the most, but he gradually realized their relationship was somewhat forced, so they chose to break up. After being freed from the chains of love, Mizuto felt they no longer needed to love or hate each other as before and hung out as step-siblings. This might actually be much better. When the date ended, Yume left first. Mizuto had to stay behind to deal with the girl who intended to make him her husband. Here, Akatsuki apologized to Mizuto for sneaking into his house the day before and hoped he wouldn't tell Yume. Mizuto decided to let it go, because to Yume, Akatsuki was a very important friend, but Akatsuki didn't even bother to thank Mizuto. On the contrary, she hadn't given up on her plan to become Mizuto's wife. She even planned to find a lover for Yume, leaving Mizuto speechless. At that moment, many questions popped into Yume's mind. Whose shoes were those in the house the other day, and why did that person invite her on a date? So Yume decided to annoy Mizuto by making him pose so she could capture cool moments of her little brother. Mizuto was very annoyed but just sat there enduring it because this was punishment for the underwear incident the other day. Then Yume and Mizuto hugged their stepsister from behind and whisper something. This was a bit much, but Mizuto still complied, making Yume somewhat satisfied. Thanks to Kogure, everything between Akatsuki and the two step-siblings was resolved. Episode 5. Mizuto still vividly remembers that night. Back then, when two complete strangers watched the moon together, this was also the beginning of a romance. But looking back, he thought it was nothing more than youthful recklessness. Today was Mother's Day, so Yume invited her stepbrother to buy a gift for their mother, but he thought they didn't necessarily have to go together. Mizuto didn't want to shop with Yume. Instead, he wanted to do something meaningful for Sunday. After a while, Yume dressed up in front of Mizuto, leaving them both stunned for 5 seconds. So he had to go shopping with Yume, because he had acted inappropriately when seeing his step-siblings dressed up. The train was very crowded, so during the shaking, Mizuto had to stand close to Yume, making both very embarrassed. It was rare to stand so close to an ex-lover, so Yume temporarily forgave Mizuto. Mizuto suggested buying a frying pan for their stepmother, but there were already 4 at home. When he suggested buying matching items with their father, Yume criticized it as childish. After some back and forth, they decided to buy flowers for their mother, which deeply moved her, and she showed them off to their father. That afternoon, Yume accidentally saw Mizuto sitting in front of his biological mother's altar, which reminded her of the first day the two mothers met Mizuto's family. Mizuto's biological mother had passed away when he was young, so he couldn't even remember her face. At this point, Yume unexpectedly comforted Mizuto because today she was playing the role of stepsister. Speaking of the gift for their father and aunt that afternoon, Mizuto also thought about spending time alone together, even though they were newlyweds, but they didn't have much time to be close, which surprised Yume a bit. Despite Mizuto's somewhat mature thinking, Yume feared their pocket money wouldn't be enough to help their parents go on a trip. That's why Mizuto thought otherwise, because all they needed was to spend the night outside, which made Yume a bit embarrassed about spending the night with her ex, but Mizuto thought he would never spend the night with her. The cafe forbids children under 18, and hotels require parental supervision, so the only option left was to rent a love hotel. Yume worried they would have to share a room, but Mizuto was worried the love hotel would burn a hole in his wallet, making her very annoyed. However, the next morning, Mizuto found a new place to stay, the house of their childhood rivals Kia, since their houses were next to each other. A week later, Akatsuki thanked Mizuto for helping her stay with Yume, and hoped she wouldn't go too far. Besides, Kogure also forbade this hyperactive girl from approaching the men's sanctuary. They are, but now they don't even bother to pair up with the little friend who lives in the same building. Their houses are separated by just a wall. When Yume first entered the house, she asked Akatsuki about her relationship with Kogure, and Mizuto asked a similar question. Well, their houses are close, so they used to hang out together in elementary school. Yet, they are still quite close now, although it looks like Kogure feels the emotional distance between them is as far as the earth and the moon, even though physically they are only separated by a wall. Goose also asked Mizuto if he was close enough to his stepsister to have seen her fruit garden, but even if he had, he absolutely would not tell. At this point, Goose suddenly freaked out, making Yume very angry. Afterwards, she sent many insulting messages calling Mizuto castrated, which made him plan revenge on Kogure. Mizuto tied his friend in a corner and loudly read Kogure's childhood dream of becoming a police officer to protect Akatsuki for life, which made Yume very bitter. After this, Goose must have feared his friend a bit, and thanks to that, we learned that these childhood friends were no different from step-siblings. That evening, the childhood friends went to eat at the same restaurant, making Akatsuki very jealous because it had been a long time since he had the chance to eat with Yume. These two even had synchronized ways of cursing, but they would never admit to their childhood friendship. After the verbal fight of the childhood friends, it was the turn of the step-siblings to tease Mizuto. "You're such a country bumpkin, you don't even know how to use a vending machine." Yume taught Mizuto to select multiple flavors at once, and mix them into a new perfect blend. But the bookworm Kogure believed it completely, so the two step-siblings were laughed at uncontrollably by the childhood friends. After eating, Akatsuki suddenly asked Mizuto to tutor him in national language, but he knew Yume had an ulterior motive. Akatsuki explained this was a strategy to make room again, so Mizuto pushed the tutoring responsibility onto Yume to please the hyperactive girl. Kogure admitted he was just an average guy, not as skilled as AI at teaching, which made Yume very frustrated, saying, "Even breathing counts for something." But that night, Mizuto had to study hard because the school exam was very difficult. The two young ladies were also diligently studying, only the carefree Kogure was panicking. Mizuto added that getting an average score wasn't too hard. Kogure wondered how Mizuto knew that, yet still tried to study, and he answered that he didn't want to be nagged by his little stepsister anymore. After listening for a while, Kogure was motivated by Mizuto to strive for a higher score than his friend. That night, Mizuto couldn't sleep and went out to the balcony, coincidentally meeting his stepsister who was also awake. She immediately teased Mizuto about Yume's cute pajamas, making her quite embarrassed. The moon was full that night, reminding them both of a past field trip. Yume wondered what would have happened if she had confessed to Mizuto back then, but he thought it wouldn't have changed anything. Yume didn't know why she asked that, just feeling that Akatsuki and Kogure were like persistent rain, even though they both denied it. While Mizuto and Yume would live together longer, as long as their father and aunt didn't separate, and they might remain step-siblings forever. In episode 6, after school, Akatsuki invited Yume to go home together, but she refused, saying she planned to stay and study, and her classmates helped drag the silly guy away so Yume could protect her top entrance exam position. Yume was very good at math, but for the first time, she got a 7 out of 10 on a test, and it was in front of Mizuto, which made her very upset. So she studied day and night to reclaim her top spot, which originally belonged to her, but Yume felt that Kogure didn't really care about the exam, making her question why she was trying so hard. After a while, the two got to know each other better in the library, and Yume realized Mizuto was paying attention to her math scores, but just pretending not to care. From then on, Yume's only love began to blossom. While Yume was studying hard, Mizuto was casually reading a comic, so his stepsister looked down on him. Therefore, Mizuto decided to seriously review to beat his sharp-tongued stepsister. The next morning, Mizuto didn't understand why Yume had to try so hard to keep her top student seat. Because she was the top student, she now had many friends. So someone like Mizuto wouldn't understand that today is the first day of the midterm exam, and Yume self-graded herself around 94 points. But tomorrow is the national language exam, Mizuto's strong subject. If he gets 100 points, then everything will be over. So, Yume sneaked a peek to see how he did today and discovered that Mizuto didn't answer the last question. That question was quite easy, so Yume was sure Mizuto could do it, but he didn't. This made Yume extremely angry, because she knew Mizuto deliberately left it blank to give her the top scorer position. She even planned to scold her stepbrother, but luckily their mother stopped it before things went too far. Mizuto also admitted that he intentionally gave way because being the top scorer wasn't important to him, which made Yume even angrier. Because that wasn't the Mizuto she knew. On the second day of exams, Mizuto declared he would drop the mask of the outstanding student that Yume wore to show everyone. And then, on the day of test results, Mizuto unexpectedly climbed to the top position, which surprised her greatly. Before leaving, Mizuto didn't forget to throw a sarcastic remark, teasing his strict stepsister for no longer being the top scorer, so Yume thought she would lose all her friends. But things turned out differently than Yume imagined, because her close friends were still there, encouraging her, which made Yume suddenly realize the meaning behind Mizuto's words. Whether or not you're the top scorer, true friends will always be by your side. And if Mizuto keeps treating Yume like this, she'll probably fall for him once again soon enough. Afterwards, Yume ran to the library to find Mizuto, and discovered him talking with a strange girl named Isana, who also liked reading books like Mizuto and Yume, except she talked more than Mizuto's old friend. Isana had a pretty relaxed view on friendship. She was the type of person who made friends easily, not rigid like that guy. She also assured that if Mizuto ever got bullied, she would jump in and get bullied alongside him, making him really annoyed. Isana often jumped through windows to read books, so she always had to ask Mizuto to put on her shoes for her. Mizuto was willing to help Isana because he felt she was the only true kindred spirit friend in his life, and there would be no better friend than her. After returning home, Mizuto unexpectedly ran into his stepsister and her hyperactive friend, and Isana, who was afraid of energetic people, quickly hid behind Mizuto. He introduced his recently made friend to both of them, but before he could finish, Yume coldly left. When Isana learned Yume was Mizuto's stepsister, she was very surprised. At that time, Yume felt very uncomfortable and guessed she was probably jealous, even though the two were no longer anything to each other. The next day, Yume suddenly acted very nicely toward Mizuto from the dining table to the classroom, making him feel somewhat unfamiliar, so he confided this to Isana. Although Yume treated Mizuto well, he still felt quite uncomfortable. Isana advised Mizuto it would be best to ask Yume directly. According to Isana, Mizuto should just do whatever he thought was right because everyone has their own standards. And thanks to that useful advice, Mizuto understood the problem he had with his stepsister and thanked his friend. Now Yume was very relaxed, no longer bothered by that Mizuto guy. Just then, Mizuto suddenly dressed up in front of Yume, making her freeze for 5 seconds because Yume had behaved improperly toward her stepbrother. So today, she was the loser and had to accept a punishment. The punishment Mizuto gave was to explain why she acted so strangely today. If there was any difficulty, he hoped she would tell him because they were siblings, so she confessed that she was jealous of Isana. It took a long time for Yume to be able to call Mizuto by his name, yet Isana could call him that easily. But since they were siblings, she couldn't be jealous. As for Mizuto, he also felt very uncomfortable with her behavior, perhaps because he didn't want Yume to treat their past as if it never happened. But Mizuto also wouldn't allow Yume to be jealous of her brother because that would be really disgusting, you know? So it wasn't until the next day that Yume could get to know Isana better. Meanwhile, Isana clarified that she and Mizuto were just friends who shared common interests. Yet yesterday, someone even thought Isana liked Mizuto, and right after that, Isana made a very shocking statement. Thanks to that, Yume and Akatsuki confirmed that the two were just friends and had no romantic feelings for each other. However, Yume still felt uneasy somehow. In episode 7, in the past, Yume and Mizuto often met at the library. But she decided to play the game of sending a love letter into the shoe locker, yet Mizuto appeared right then. If she confessed to Mizuto tomorrow, the success rate would be 99%. That night, Akatsuki called to chat with Yume, causing the girl to lose all her chances. At the end of that day, Yume finally managed to give the love letter to Mizuto. Fortunately, he agreed. So in the summer of their second year at Chunghai, the two officially started dating. Back to the present, Isana also received a letter inside the shoe cabinet, but it was a threatening letter revealing a secret from the past. And the person behind this cruel prank was none other than the hyperactive girl Akatsuki. Actually, this girl didn't even know what Isana's secret was, but Isana had revealed before that she once tried to be a YouTuber. Back to the main issue, Akatsuki asked Isana if she liked Mizuto, and Isana answered that she did like Mizuto. But the two didn't know whether she liked him as a friend or as a lover. So Akatsuki whispered something into Isana's ear that even made the girl unable to believe herself, showing an embarrassed expression. Even Isana didn't fully understand what kind of like Akatsuki was talking about. Therefore, the two decided to set up a date for Isana and Mizuto, which surprised both Isana and Yume, especially since Yume had never helped her friend set up a date before. However, Isana immediately refused. It was true she liked Mizuto, but only as a friend. Just chatting with him every day was enough to make her happy. From Isana's tone and facial expression, Yume recalled herself in the past when she was preparing to confess to Mizuto. So Yume encouraged Isana to keep trying, not to give up before trying, even though she used to be jealous of him. Then Yume told Isana some stories about what couples usually do to inspire her, and because of that, Isana also wanted to try dating and doing those couple things with Mizuto. After a long persuasion, Isana was exhausted. Only then did Yume realize she had just taken a wrong step. The next morning, Akatsuki wanted Isana to talk with Mizuto as usual, and she would stay outside to observe and give Isana tips to conquer Mizuto, even though Mizuto was known for being uninterested in girls. But when it comes to boys and girls, he would inevitably show his feelings. While Isana was reading with Mizuto, the two who were spying on someone bathing accidentally saw their friend's underwear showing. Mizuto also noticed it and coldly reminded her, making Isana embarrassed and run away to urgently ask the two strategists. According to Akatsuki, Mizuto didn't even consider Isana a girl, so she advised her friend to use the secret weapon of all girls. So Isana attacked Mizuto with her heavy artillery. But this time, the guy was still very calm and handsome, making the two bored. In contrast to Isana, Yume and Akatsuki always regarded a lover as a special presence, while Isana knew nothing about it. For Isana, a lover was simply an extended form of friendship, wanting to be a lover but not wanting to lose a friend. This somewhat reassured Yume. Akatsuki noticed Isana was too lacking in femininity. If she changed a bit, Mizuto would definitely pay attention. After that, Akatsuki helped Isana put on lipstick and powder, but Mizuto thought Isana had just eaten fried food. Moreover, he advised Isana to eat less or she would gain weight, which made Akatsuki annoyed. She wondered that anyone who could love this guy must be crazy. Sitting beside her, Isana tried to sit closer to Mizuto, but he moved away a bit, making her very confused. When Isana dared to invade Mizuto's territory, he destroyed her hair, which the two had just styled for her. Then Mizuto helped Isana fix her hair, making her visibly happy. That night, Akatsuki advised Isana to confess, but both Isana and Yume still felt it was too soon. Meanwhile, Akatsuki believed in the saying, "Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. If you don't act now, the future might not be favorable." With Akatsuki's dating experience and Mizuto's facial expressions that day, she advised Isana that if she confessed tomorrow, the success rate would be 99%. That night, Akatsuki called Yume to chat, saying that her stepbrother was about to have a girlfriend and wondered what the older sister would think. Yume just felt that the situation was that the stepbrother was about to have a girlfriend. Yume wondered what the stepsister would think, and she just felt that Isana would definitely succeed in confessing. That afternoon, Yume and Akatsuki helped Isana groom her face before going to confess to Mizuto. The two also didn't forget to encourage their friend to be confident. Who knows, a surprise might come. After Mizuto appeared, Isana showed great embarrassment and couldn't say the words of love to the young man. Fortunately, Mizuto helped Isana adjust her emotions. She began to recount the circumstances of how the two met before. She was very embarrassed because the two were already a couple. Sharing a room would mean something different. Isana was considered a very strange and unpleasant person, but since meeting a friend who listened and shared the same interests, she felt very happy, so Isana wanted to be by Mizuto's side more. Specifically, she wanted to be his girlfriend. As for Mizuto, he also felt very happy being with Isana, because he had never met someone so compatible with him. If the two dated, Mizuto was sure they would become even closer. But then Mizuto apologized to Isana, because he couldn't accept her confession since he was a narrow-minded person. Once serious about someone, it could only be that person. Even though now he no longer had any authority like others, he still held on to it. Mizuto didn't want the person he just mentioned to cry, so no matter how many times Isana wanted him to apologize, he apologized once again for not being able to be her boyfriend, even though Isana was the one confessing and Mizuto was the one being confessed to. But the one with the most feelings right now was Yume. Yume clearly felt that Mizuto could date Isana while she was just a stepsister. Why was she kept in such a place in his heart? Even though Isana was just rejected by Mizuto, she still played with him as usual because they were still friends. In episode 8, Isana suddenly wanted to look at Mizuto's bookshelf, which surprised him a bit. She explained that since she was a boy, everyone must have some novels they don't show their parents, so she wanted to check them out. Which waifu awakened the beast inside Mizuto? Hearing this, Mizuto couldn't help but tap Isana a few times for making unreasonable demands. He only agreed to let her into his room if Isana gave a reasonable reason. The thing was, Isana wanted to borrow some old novels from him, but what Mizuto cared about was her just walking straight into a boy's room. Was she crazy? But Isana thought since he rejected her yesterday, there was no need to be cautious today. That innocent and blameless look made Mizuto helpless. Knowing that Isana would come to Mizuto's house tomorrow, Akatsuki and Yume decided to plan to give their friend a makeover. They even offered to pay for Isana on the condition that she had to wear any outfit they chose without any opinion. Needless to say, those two would definitely make Isana wear some revealing clothes, which made her very embarrassed. Because of Isana's hot figure, both friends found it hard to pick clothes for her. Finally, Akatsuki thought Yume's style suited Isana, but if she wore it, they would be matching. So she decided to ask Yume to just change her style, which made Yume realize that from the start, Akatsuki had deliberately done this to turn Yume into a dress-up doll. When Yume first dated Mizuto, she knew nothing about fashion, and only had to take an online fashion course before their first date. However, Mizuto didn't have any special reaction to Yume's cute outfit, which made her think a lot. Finally, before leaving, he suddenly complimented Yume's outfit as cute, but said she shouldn't wear that short skirt outside, meaning it was only allowed to be worn for Mizuto to see, which made her gloomy. From then on, Yume's fashion style was formed based on Mizuto's preferences. Thinking back, Yume felt it was indeed youthful recklessness. Then Yume tried a fashion style with a crop top combined with long jeans, which made the two friends very impressed. Next, it was Isana's turn to try Yume's fashion style, and Isana liked it enough to decide to buy it right away. The two friends found it very confusing, because earlier Isana hesitated but now quickly decided. It turned out she had texted Mizuto for his opinion, and the young man thought it was quite okay. Along with the style of his ex-girlfriend, no wonder he didn't compliment it. Going back to Mizuto's youthful, reckless days, Yume wanted to buy a book, but didn't bring enough money. Mizuto had a whole set, so he invited Yume to his house to hang out. She was very embarrassed because they were dating, and sharing a room would imply something else. Seeing the boy bring his girlfriend home, Mizuto's parents were very curious about Mizuto's stepsister. They even barged into his room to prevent the young man from doing anything to Isana, leaving him speechless. Just after saying that, Isana picked a novel and immediately jumped onto Mizuto's bed to read. Yume showed great helplessness, seeing her friend comfortably jump straight onto a guy's bed, but Isana thought she had been rejected. Yume saw Mizuto chatting happily with another girl in the library, so there was nothing to be shy about. Mizuto also told his stepsister not to overthink it, since he already considered Isana as a guy. So Yume had no choice but to hold the book and read like the other two. After finishing volume 1, Isana asked Mizuto to massage her shoulders because big people get tired quickly, and if Mizuto refused, she would roll around on the bed to leave a scent. So Mizuto had to comply with the nagging girl's request. Seeing Mizuto not even bothering to keep his distance from Isana, along with a somewhat strange expression, Yume thought the two were secretly dating. But in Yume's eyes, it looked like the two were flirting with each other. The scene shifted to Yume asking Isana if she still liked Mizuto, and Isana replied that she had always liked Mizuto both as a friend and as a guy. She would even get a little jealous if Mizuto had another friend, which made Yume realize that Isana was only afraid of losing her place in Mizuto's heart, not like couples who were romantically involved. After Isana went to the bathroom, Yume took off her socks and asked Mizuto to put them on for her, which confused him a lot. When Mizuto put on Yume's socks, a nostalgic feeling from the past suddenly returned. Luckily, Isana's urgent text message broke the awkward atmosphere between this step-sibling and ex-lover couple. But when going downstairs, Isana was asked many questions by Mizuto's parents, who even thought she was Mizuto's ex-girlfriend. Actually, Isana was still quite hurt after being rejected by Mizuto, so she wanted him to comfort her. This was the first time Isana felt that reading on a day off could be so enjoyable. Mizuto suddenly remembered his past with Yume and wondered if, back then, if he hadn't accepted Yume's confession, would they still be happy until now? Volume 9. Although they always argued verbally, at least in early middle school they had sweet moments. Today, Mizuto's dad was away, so the young man took the opportunity to invite his girlfriend over. Mizuto's room was full of books, which caught Yume's attention, especially the only seat, which was his bed. At that time, Yume was a gloomy girl, so any action from Mizuto made her feel very shy. For a moment, Yume thought Mizuto would do something with her, but the young man just wanted to read together. After a few hours of reading, Mizuto saw Yume off, leaving her quite disappointed. After half a year of dating, they had kissed and held hands, thinking this time they would become adults, but Mizuto had no such intention. Actually, Mizuto craved it too, but whenever it was about to happen, he became shy. Back in the third year of middle school, the two had to separate into different classes, signaling a future split. Yume wasn't very happy about being in a different class from Mizuto because there was no boyfriend or friends there. But Mizuto promised Yume that he would make sure they had many youthful memories on occasions like Christmas or Valentine's Day. Sometime later, Yume told Mizuto that she had made a new friend in class. It seemed dating Mizuto had made Yume more outgoing. Yume's new friend also liked reading books like both of them, so Yume introduced many books to him. Recently, Yume had started making new friends, so the time she spent with Mizuto was getting less, although she didn't show it outwardly, but it was clear Mizuto was visibly annoyed. When Yume tried to introduce this new friend to Mizuto, he flatly refused, saying he wasn't interested in Yume's friends, which confused her a bit. That night, Mizuto regretted his afternoon behavior and planned to make up with her the next day. Meanwhile, Yume also realized she had been neglecting Mizuto lately and intended to apologize, but the next day, Yume saw Mizuto happily chatting with another girl in the library. Not sure if it was due to lack of confidence or what, Yume didn't dare approach to talk to either of them until that girl left. Yume then dared to show her face. Mizuto apologized to Yume for his attitude the day before and hoped she would forgive him. But at that moment, Yume was jealous of the girl earlier, so she quickly questioned Mizuto and even thought he was cheating on her. Most importantly, Yume didn't want their sacred spot to be invaded by others. Yume's hat was accidentally blown away by the wind, revealing her 2 braids along with her glasses. Although that person was just a friend Mizuto happened to meet today. That night, Yume vaguely realized they were both misunderstanding. But at that moment, she chose to be a little angry at Mizuto. While Mizuto's reason for being mad at Yume the day before was because he thought she was looking at him with the eyes of someone without friends. But Mizuto clearly knew Yume only wanted what was best for him, but his ego was too big at that time. Sometime later, the two accidentally met at the city library and decided to talk privately. Mizuto realized maintaining such an awkward relationship was not good at all, so he apologized and hoped to make peace with her. Meanwhile, Yume was still bothered by why Mizuto wouldn't comfort her, and Mizuto was very uncomfortable because he didn't receive an apology from Yume. Even though they had made up, it felt like nothing. That night, Yume planned to invite Mizuto to the fireworks festival, but she didn't have the courage to invite him to run to the place where Mizuto found her last year, and to find a glimmer of hope, even though she knew he would never come. On the 1-year dating anniversary, neither of them even bothered to text or check on each other. After a month of summer break without meeting, the two continued living separate lives in their last year of middle school. And then Mizuto didn't keep his promise to create many memories during youth with Yume. On Christmas or Valentine's Day, finally at graduation, Mizuto chose to break up. He admitted he loved Yume very much, but also hated her somewhere deep inside, because of unnecessary conflicts, and those unresolved conflicts led both to decide to break up. Although it was quite sad, it was also a relief. Back to the present, Yume is throwing Mizuto's bookshelf around, but he can't do anything because they are step-siblings. That is the book they read together that day. So Mizuto is sure that at that moment her mind was full of naughty thoughts, but Yume thought he was the one who started it. By texting, "My dad's not home," she was prepared to become an adult. But if anyone is to blame, it's Mizuto for being too incompetent. Although they had broken up, sometimes arguing like this might actually be more comfortable. Episode 10. Today it rained heavily, so Yume's uncle and mother would not come home. At that moment, a little cockroach appeared in Yume's room, so she had to run to Mizuto's room to take refuge. Mizuto was too lazy to go to Yume's room to be the hero who kills bugs, so he left the little creature there. Yume casually jumped onto Mizuto's bed to sleep together, even though they were ex-lovers, because in middle school, Mizuto didn't even have the guts to touch Yume, so now there was nothing to fear. That night, Mizuto accidentally saw Yume's face while she was sound asleep, bringing back countless memories flooding his mind. The fact that they were step-siblings or ex-lovers couldn't change anything, and he would not regret it. The next morning, Yume teased Mizuto about being afraid of bugs like a little boy, but he didn't even bother to respond. Soon, the whole family would go back to the countryside to meet Mizuto's grandparents and camp by the stream, so his father advised them to prepare swimsuits. Yume only had a school swimsuit, so her mother told her to go buy a swimsuit with Mizuto, which made both of them quite nervous. Later, Yume wore the swimsuit she just bought the day before, plus a hat and a pair of glasses to disguise herself. Yume also wanted her stepbrother to disguise himself like her so that acquaintances wouldn't misunderstand they were dating. At the swimsuit shop, Yume asked Mizuto to check out the new swimsuit she chose, which surprised him a lot. And when he saw Yume's hot figure, Mizuto was stunned for 5 seconds. He was supposed to comment on whether it suited her or not, but because he was too flustered, he mistakenly commented on her personality instead. Before leaving, Yume felt Mizuto was visibly uncomfortable, yet he still went shopping with her until the end of the day. Mizuto found that Yume always teased him, but honestly, she was very diligent for the family. At that moment, the two accidentally passed by the alley where they shared their first kiss. Yume's hat was blown away by the wind, revealing her 2 braids and glasses, just like when she was in middle school, and then a familiar feeling suddenly flooded both their minds before Mizuto shattered it. That night, Yume returned the book to Mizuto just as his parents were downstairs, so they had to behave like siblings at home. It looked very awkward, but in a way, that was good because at least in their parents' eyes, they still behaved like real step-siblings. Today, Isana dropped by Mizuto's house to watch a movie. She watched while resting her head on Mizuto's lap, like real step-siblings. Today, Isana came over to Mizuto's house to watch a movie, resting her head on Mizuto's lap while watching, which made Yume sitting beside them very uncomfortable. And Yume imagined countless future scenarios involving Mizuto and Isana, but none of them came true. After the movie ended, Mizuto began sharing his thoughts, making Isana look very interested. Meanwhile, Yume focused too much on Isana's gestures, forgot to pay attention to the movie's content, so now she knew nothing. Mizuto was very tired after 2 hours of watching the movie, so he had to temporarily use the cup that Yume had just finished drinking from, which made Isana confused and surprised, because that was basically an indirect kiss, but it didn't affect those two since they were siblings. Not to mention, they used to be ex-lovers. Seeing Mizuto getting sleepy, Isana cleverly offered her legs as a pillow, but Yume stopped her. Not wanting her head to be disturbed, Mizuto leaned toward Yume, which surprised her. After seeing Mizuto fall asleep soundly, Isana planned to steal a kiss from him, But as long as the stepsister and ex-girlfriend were still sitting there, she couldn't act boldly. When Isana left, Yume also unconsciously wanted to steal a kiss from Mizuto, and she understood why. Mizuto suddenly stopped that day because he didn't want to ruin his parents' current happy life. That night, Yume's mother was very curious about Mizuto and Isana's relationship, and Yume said they were just friends. But in the future, those two might become lovers. So Yume's mother wanted her daughter to have a boyfriend so Mizuto wouldn't leave her behind. But then Yume suddenly realized that besides Mizuto, she didn't have any boyfriend. After the summer festival date, Yume loved Mizuto even more. At that moment, Mizuto unexpectedly called Yume for no particular reason, just wanting to talk to her a little more, which made Yume very happy. Today was the day Mizuto's family came to visit, including his grandmother, and it was also the introduction of Yume and her mother to Mizuto's relatives. There was a cousin named Madoka, who seemed very close to him. Upon seeing Yume, Madoka found her very interesting. Then she reminded everyone to wear swimsuits later because the family would have a party by the stream. During the party, Yume sat eating with Madoka and her younger brother Chikuma, while the bookish young man was quietly reading under the shade. Mizuto's mother passed away since he was born, so everyone in the family was very concerned about the two of them. Thus, when Mizuto's father brought Yume and her mother here, the whole family was very happy. The father could be considered a role model for having gone through many hardships in life, so Yume felt that she and Mizuto must protect this family at all costs. Madoka thought Yume's swimsuit was very cute and asked if her boyfriend picked it out. Yume said no but looked toward Mizuto without saying anything. Madoka already knew who that was. Madoka was quite jealous of Yume because Mizuto never opened up to her before. After eating, Mizuto asked to leave, which confused Yume and Madoka. So Madoka turned to invite Yume to go swimming, but before Yume could agree, she was already pulled down to the stream. That night, everyone continued having a party at Madoka's house, and Yume was asked to call Mizuto to take a bath, because every time he came here, the boy stayed in the study room until late at night. Every year, Mizuto read his great-grandfather's autobiography so well that he memorized every word. When he was in first grade, Mizuto accidentally found this authorless book here, and since then, every year he read it. This was also the first book Mizuto finished reading, even though at that time, he could only barely read a few words. The autobiography was written by Mizuto's great-grandfather when he was a soldier, about a girl he met on the battlefield. Mizuto was shy to explain in detail, so he advised Yume to read it herself because the book wasn't very long. Besides Mizuto, neither his father, mother, grandmother, nor Madoka knew about this book's existence. So Yume would be the first person Mizuto shared this book with. This was her chance to touch the roots of him. After starting for a while, Yume's tears suddenly rolled down her cheeks onto the pages. And here she also discovered the tears Mizuto had shed before. This study room is completely isolated from the outside world, as if that is how Mizuto copes with that world. Just as Mizuto entered, Yume immediately asked what kind of person his first love was. To Mizuto, that person always smiled a lot, but somehow Yume associated that with Madoka. The next morning, Madoka and Yume had a session choosing traditional outfits to go watch the fireworks. Yume couldn't concentrate because she was thinking about Mizuto and how he fit into the world. Madoka also keenly noticed that Yume was preoccupied with something related to Mizuto, so she asked if Yume liked Mizuto. Yume didn't understand what kind of like was being referred to, so Madoka explained that when you're with an AI and your heart races and you even want to kiss them, that's liking someone. But Yume kept answering evasively, making Madoka think she was just looking for an excuse not to like Mizuto. And if Yume wanted to find her true feelings, Madoka would wholeheartedly support her. That evening, Madoka asked Mizuto to go with Yume to find a lantern, which left Yume speechless. Mizuto could tell at a glance that Yume had something important to say to him, and even needed Madoka's help. But when facing Mizuto, Yume didn't know what she wanted to say to him. After returning to her hometown and meeting relatives, Yume felt the two of them must protect this home, but until she entered the study and discovered what was hidden inside Mizuto's soul, it awakened in Yume, an emotion she should have forgotten long ago. For Yume, Mizuto was her first love, the person who pulled her out of loneliness. Yet when they broke up, Yume felt liberated, which made her feel extremely guilty. She regretted not daring to hold on at that time. If she had called him then, maybe things would be different now. Afterwards, Yume both cried and apologized to Mizuto, calling him by his surname like when they were still in love. Mizuto also wanted them to return to that youthful, reckless time. After a few minutes of expressing all their feelings, Yume confessed she felt very uncomfortable thinking Madoka was Mizuto's first love, and Mizuto has confirmed that he never liked Madoka. Only overthinkers like Yume would think that way. Before leaving, Mizuto reminded her that his first love was someone who smiled a lot, which made Yume, his first love, extremely shy. Episode 12. After Yume put on a yukata, Madoka praised her as super cute, and when she saw Mizuto also wearing one outside, Yume insisted on taking a photo of him, but before she could, Mizuto took her phone and snapped a photo of her instead. Mizuto didn't like crowded places, but every year Madoka dragged him along, so he didn't want to resist anymore. Madoka advised them to hold hands so they wouldn't get lost. Mizuto thought they weren't kids anymore, but before he could finish, Yume grabbed his hand. For Yume, watching over her little brother was a sister's responsibility, and Mizuto didn't want to argue with her anymore, so he reluctantly held her hand. Afterwards, the four siblings strolled around the fireworks festival and stopped at a bottle shooting booth. Madoka's two sisters tried the first round, but their closeness made Yume feel embarrassed for them. When it was Mizuto's turn, Madoka wanted Yume to support him with just a hug, and surprisingly, Yume did it, leaving Mizuto speechless. Because her legs were tired, Yume accidentally pushed Mizuto forward, causing his shot to miss the chicken and hit the target. But the prize was a stuffed animal that Chikuma really liked, making him very happy. Mizuto noticed Yume's earlier slip and thought Yume was a perverted step-sibling. On the other hand, Isana and Mizuto kept doing things like that, making Yume call him fake, but Isana innocently rushed in without thinking. Mizuto sensed Yume's tension and saw that Mizuto not only spoke correctly but loudly, so she couldn't argue. Afterwards, Yume saw her mother and uncle talking to someone. Yume's mother called her over to introduce her to Mrs. Kadanokuji, who hoped Yume could treat Mizuto well from now on. Her words implied that Mizuto wouldn't survive without support, so Mrs. Kadanokuji arranged a spot for the family to watch the fireworks. But then Yume suddenly realized Mizuto had disappeared right before everyone's eyes. Madoka said that Mizuto has the habit of disappearing before the fireworks show, making Yume feel that this is not a fun place with Mizuto. But on the contrary, he is not indifferent to his family, as evidenced by his attention to his younger brother Chikuma, and also by rejecting Isana's confession because of Yume. From the two becoming lovers in the past to Mizuto not attending the festival, Yume shows all the events together and realizes the true picture of Mizuto's character. Therefore, Yume decides to ask for permission from everyone to set off to find Mizuto, while Mizuto is sitting sadly alone at the shrine. Since he became aware, Mizuto has felt that this world is empty. He lives very normally, but he doesn't understand why everyone seems to care and pity him excessively in this vast world. The only thing Mizuto can understand is words. Mizuto still hasn't forgotten the shock of his early life when reading his great-grandfather's autobiography that filled his heart with color. To him, the world through the pages of books is real, and his real life is fake. Initially, Mizuto met Yume just by chance. On their first date, Mizuto was very annoyed by Yume's weakness, and also by the indifference of those around them. But that moment gave birth to what is called Mizuto's true feelings, and to him, Yume, he was also the first person he considered real in this fake world. At that time, Yume also understood that she was the one who lit hope for Mizuto's life. Yume was the motivation for Mizuto to fight against his hopeless life, but then he lost that. At this moment, Yume also found Mizuto sitting at the shrine. Instead of arguing like usual, she told about their first date at the festival. A few days later, Mizuto called Yume again, making her realize that she was also loved a lot. Mizuto still clearly remembers the day they first kissed, which is also Yume's phone password. Until now. Then, following their emotions, the two started to recall memories of their youthful recklessness. The memories are always there, and only we leave. But at that time, the two were still together in a different way. Yume was very curious why Mizuto chose her as his girlfriend, and he thought it was all accidental. If the person he met before was not Yume but Isana, perhaps they wouldn't have had that youthful time. But the truth was, the person he met first was Yume. Suddenly, fireworks exploded, fulfilling a wish. Watching the fireworks together in the past, just as Mizuto's tears rolled down his cheeks, Yume gave him a kiss. As her present self, she promised herself that she would once again conquer Mizuto and kick that gloomy girl from the past to become the #1 girl in his heart. The next morning, Yume said goodbye to Madoka, to return to the city, and she also wished Yume to soon fulfill her wish. Yume also stayed to talk privately with the lady a little longer about Mizuto, making her very curious. Mizuto noticed Yume seemed a bit strange since returning to the countryside, but she told him not to worry because they are stepsisters. The new school year began. Kogure and Isana were very displeased when they saw Mizuto digging up such a rude friend. Both claimed to be Mizuto's best friends, leaving him speechless. As soon as Kogure saw Isana, he immediately switched to a sarcastic mode. Luckily, the friend stopped him in time before he went too far. And for Isana, she and Mizuto were just a little closer than usual. Unlike the gloomy early middle school days, both Mizuto and Yume now had very energetic friends. Although their feelings for each other still remained, it was okay because the two could still develop in a completely new direction. Mizuto and Yume once dated during their early Chung period while they were in a relationship. Both often had arguments over trivial matters, so Mizuto and Yume decided to break up on graduation day.